Hi, everybody. Welcome to a very special show today. It's a rock and wrestling tribute show. Unfortunately, we've lost a lot of people in the last couple of weeks, but two especially we're going to talk about today is the legendary Ozzy Osbourne. There you go.
God
And we
rest his
also,
soul.
yeah, God rest his soul. And we also lost wrestling legend and American icon Hulk Hogan.
Yes, sir.
Hulk Hogan passed away. I
Dude,
was
you want to
shocked.
hear something? People were talking about. They had that picture of Hulk Hogan like in a ISIS, like an ice place with his American flag. That
Yeah.
was AI generated. He never went to one of these
No.
facilities. It was somebody just being a dick.
Yeah, well, that's the problem today. Is if someone doesn't like you, they'll create the AI shit, and
Yeah,
you can't tell the
it
difference
was funny.
sometimes. You know,
I did. I've read.
let me
Go ahead. I'm
introduce
sorry.
everybody. Okay, we
Yeah.
got Sean Harris on the bottom there. Of course, we got
Hey, how
Rob
you doing?
on the top. We may have another guest in a little while. Hopefully,
Yeah.
he pops in. But Sean, we've had you on before. We had a great Iron Maiden episode on the Rock Show a couple years ago. You were part of. It's I think one of our best shows. You've been on other podcasts talking about music. I know you play guitar. You've been in some bands. I've seen you play, and I know one of your favorite artists is Ozzy, and especially because of the Randy Rhoads stuff that was Ozzy was in with Randy, and Randy passed away a long time ago. Uh, how much of an influence was Ozzy on you? Let me just ask that.
Well, I was. I'm glad you asked, and thanks for having me back. By the way,
Sure.
we had a heck of a podcast with Iron Maiden, and I love my guitar playing. I try to get better every day if I can. Never as good as these guys, but Ozzy had a gaggle of guitar players.
Right.
No way around it. From all the way from Sabbath, and you talk about riffs, and even into his '80s career when there were a lot of shredders. And but Randy Rhoads, you can't say enough about him. But a big fan of Ozzy's '80s music, honestly, because of that kind of guitar playing. You had Rat, you had guys, Eddie Van Halen for that matter, but Randy Rhoads really set the bar very high. I was looking to kind of bring this up, but I've been listening to Speak of the Devil, which featured Brad Gillis from Night Ranger.
Yeah.
So Randy had just passed away, and Sharon and Ozzy, pretty much overnight, were in New York, and Brad Gillis from Night Ranger was in L.A. And they said, "Can you come to New York?" Because they wanted to continue that tour when Randy passed away. Now they
Right.
had not
Sure.
they weren't at Bark at the Moon yet, and they had not yet captured Jakey Lee, also from Los Angeles. But Brad Gillis from good old Night Ranger, I've been kind of rediscovering that, and it's incredible material. And he's a heck of a player. So with Ozzy will always come a great guitarist, you know.
Well, I
Um,
agree. There's several people that I think kind of fit in that category that always had great bands with them. Alice Cooper's another one. Like, even
oh
if
yeah,
some of the material is not what it was, it's still
right.
great because he has such a live band behind him. That's fantastic. Ozzy was exactly like that too. Ozzy is one of the greatest frontmen ever. Okay.
For
Uh,
me, certainly, yeah, yeah.
yeah, I
yeah.
mean, and I think it's funny. Uh, Rob, Vinny, our friend Vinny.
Yeah.
Okay, he brought up something, and he kind of said it off the cuff, and I thought it was just kind of funny, but it's actually true. And he said that Ozzy is like the Elvis of our generation, and I kind of get it. I didn't think about it at first, but then I thought about it. And I said, he really is. I mean, everybody saw Elvis at some point. Okay, back in the day, 50 years ago, 60, well, more than that, 60, 70 years ago. Ozzy
Right.
is one of these guys that, like, if you were into, you know, you were into punk, you were into metal, you were into thrash, back in the day, everybody ended up seeing Ozzy at some point.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
just I saw him twice. Okay, I saw him with this is gonna date me. Back when Metallica was opening for him in the mid '80s when Cliff Burton was still in the band.
Oh, forget about it. No,
Yeah,
well, you're gonna get me started. Please
yeah,
continue.
that was a
Yeah.
great show. And then I also saw him in the early 2000s with Rob Zombie opening up. And for me, Ozzy, my favorite stuff is the Sabbath stuff. Okay,
Right.
not knocking the solo stuff. There's some good shit there, but for me, it was especially the first couple of Sabbath albums. Even the last one that he was on in the '70s, "Never Say Die." Like that. I like that record. A lot of people don't. I like that record, but I just think that he was a game changer. I mean, there was nobody like that band when they first came out.
Yeah.
And I think that he took it to a whole other level. Go ahead.
You know what Ozzy's name was, right? He was born John Michael
Osbourne. John Michael
Yeah.
Osbourne.
Yeah, there you have it. John Michael
When do
Osbourne.
you guys know how he got the name Ozzy?
I don't know.
Oh, that's a good question.
Is it just because his last name's Osbourne? Oz.
I think that's probably it. It got to be something that simple, because imagine him being like John. Doesn't sound right, but Ozzy sounds like all right. This guy's Mr.
He doesn't look like a John. Yeah, he doesn't look like John.
But he's like a John Michael, which is funny.
You know what's funny is Tony Iommi tells a story that he was looking to put a band together. I think he had Bill Ward with him. I think, and he basically put an ad out. And actually, I'm telling it wrong. Ozzy had approached him and said he would do it, and Tony didn't want him. Okay, and then there's another part of the story where like they put an ad out, and it ended up being like Ozzy was the one that answered the ad. They went to an ad that Ozzy put out about a band, and it was him.
Right.
And it just all worked. Like I only thought that he had heard that he couldn't sing, but that could not be true when he saw him. So things could have been totally different if that didn't happen.
Well, yeah. If I can, I'd like to address that just for a second because, and it's in the fondness of time. But Ozzy was, I was thinking about it today because I was speaking with somebody else about songwriting, and Ozzy was a big Beatles fan. Okay, and Ozzy maybe not the best singer, maybe not the first guy you would ask, but they were in Birmingham, And at the time, Ozzy, I saw this recent interview. He was like, well, everything was like, if you're going to San Francisco, put a flower in your hair. We were in Birmingham. We weren't doing great.
Birmingham, just to interrupt you, in England,
go ahead.
Especially at that time, was an industrial city. It was dirty. It was a lot of crime. There was
rainy. Not great.
No, and they weren't, they weren't relating to, put a flower in your hair
at all.
Was coming out of San Francisco at that time. They wanted to do something that encapsulated what they were living through, and that became Black Sabbath. Yeah,
and it what became well, and inadvertently, I think they. I'm sorry. Good God, sorry about that. No, they. Well, we can go into this later, but inadvertently just invented heavy metal in my book, a longer conversation, but yeah, they were writing heavy music. But again, with Ozzy, going back to like his creativity and his melodies, which we can explore a little bit later, he was a big Beatles fan, and he just, he was a real diamond in the rough, truly. And Tony and Bill Ward and Geezer, they were great. They were, nearly a garage band, not like an MC5 maybe, but they were writing riffs, and it was different and new, and certainly heavier than Blue Cheer or anything that had come before.
Right, and they were tuning down their guitars, which is legendary. We all know that, and so they were getting this sound that really never existed before. I mean, you look at Black Sabbath; they came out of nowhere with that riff.
Well, and one thing, just a quick thing, because, I got to talk about the guitar players, but Tony cut his fingers off in an industrial accident.
One of them, right? Not all.
I think 1.5, something like that.
Yeah,
But anyway, the point is, everybody's heard this story, but he was like, let's tune the strings down. But again, back to Ozzy on his vocal range, he was very mid-range. And if you listen to almost every Ozzy song, he doesn't soar like a Bruce Dickinson. He's not operatic. It's not neoclassical. It's something really new that was a precursor to even punk for me. But certainly the grand godfather of heavy metal, the great granddad of heavy metal. But he really stays in that mid range, which was his range, and it was perfect for Tony's guitar playing. And that D tune it down to make the strings play better.
You know what's
And
another
it,
thing that I think with that Ozzy or his guitars? I think they listen to Wavelength a lot. So those guys had that weird sound with a guitar, like the
right,
like when they did song,
uh
and
huh,
they were like I think they took that from him because they were like the Stone and all that thing. I think a lot of people like that loud riff guitar, but it started
yeah.
pretty early because a lot of people couldn't do it.
No, Rob, you bring up a kind of a really good point for, especially with the guitars, because like that gallop, you
Yeah.
know, Iron Maiden certainly lifted that,
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely,
and
absolutely.
well, all of those bands, you know, that's one of the first things I learned.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
especially I had a drummer in the house, so it's like, can we you
Yeah.
know? And if you could do that, you could play rhythm. And but it just sounded. It was almost like when Johnny Cash did that. You know,
Yeah.
when it sounded like the train was coming.
Right.
Yeah.
It was
It,
like it
it
was a
was like
train with a train rolling. Yes.
yeah, it was the
What
second coming of that for me. And Sabbath certainly provided that, and Ozzy was certainly present for that.
and
But you
what
know
they
what it
did
was?
too is
Sorry. What I
what they did too, guys, is like songs like where you have that galloping sound like Children of the Grave.
Yep.
yeah.
Like there's a groove there though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a groove that you don't. I always find like that song to be like something different from other songs of theirs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just had that groove they locked into on that.
It's
Nobody's had
cool.
it like that.
You know, it's cool you brought that up. I know a lot of musicians and an old drummer friend of mine back home. But we were talking about exactly that song. But Bill Ward, who I have seen at a couple of Ozfests, and I saw them out in out in Seattle when I was living out there with my lovely wife.
Yeah,
But Bill Ward, he almost had a swing quality to him,
yeah,
where it was almost jazzy, where he wasn't hitting that hard, though he could pound, you know, but he wasn't John Bonham. But they had this swagger and this swing to him that was, it was, you're only as good as your drummer. I've said it 100 times,
it's true.
but,
Yeah,
uh, but what a great band. But they had that. So I agree with both of you.
Yeah, you know
Sure.
what the thing? Johnny Cash had that with the way he played guitar, it was almost like a speed guitar. He would try to play as fast as possible to get that freaking sound. So the
Yeah.
song would just rhyme. So he was like playing as fast as possible. Like you can hear that like in Ring of Fire. You can hear it
Yeah.
in Austin Prison. Like that kind of guitar. People don't play
Yeah.
that style because it was a very different style. It's the same thing like when you look at like if you look at Eddie Van Halen, he brought that style back. He brought that weird like freaking that weird guitar like
That freight
yeah,
train, that crazy train, if you will.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Crazy Train,
Um,
it's like that too.
well, that's a good point, Rob, because I think Cash, and I wonder if Ozzy, because not only do you have that freight train coming, but
Yeah,
you have all those lyrics, and Cash did that. He was like, well, I
yeah,
hear, and at the time it was like, wow, how do we process all this material? Because you got a lot of lyrics, you got a great drummer, you got a lot of music coming in at
yeah,
you, like a freight train.
yeah,
But Ozzy certainly knew his rock and roll, and uh, and Randy Rhoads, back to guitar, and
yeah,
I won't harp on guitar players, but Ozzy knew what he had with Randy, and that
yeah,
was such a great loss for him.
yes,
But yeah, that freight train was coming in hot,
yeah.
and
It was like
he had left Sabbath and gone solo. You know,
yeah,
they recorded just to shift gears a little bit. But they Sharon Osbourne. So you're only as good as your drummer, and if you're straight like me, or if you're only as good as your wife. She secured. They recorded that damn thing for $10,000.
damn,
Okay, and that's why some people are like, well, the production doesn't sound that great, so it doesn't sound like you're on an Iron Maiden record with $30,000, $50,000 at the time, which was like $1 million. But man, I go back and listen to it. I'm like, it sounds fine to me.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
I like the sound on those records.
Yeah,
yeah.
my favorite was I Am Iron Man.
Oh
Yeah,
well, sure. Oh
And
man.
and I remember watching the Road Warriors, and they would come out to Iron Man, and they would destroy the opponent. But that just the Iron Man and these guys called the Road Warrior, and you see
Yeah.
that song playing as loud as fucking a wrestling
There's
arena.
no
It was
better
like,
soundtrack.
I was terrified just watching the Road Warriors come in and beating the shit. But then you got I Am Iron Man. It's like, what the hell
Yeah.
is going on here? It was such a that song is such a great song. You can hear that song today, and you'll be like, wow, it still gives you chill. It's a
Well,
fantastic.
no, it is. And you know, real quickly, when I was coming up and starting to play music with my brother gang, a great drummer. But we were revisiting heavy music with bands like the
Yeah, yeah.
Melvins, right? Um, who borrowed a lot from Sabbath and Ozzy for that matter. But I'm talking 1989, and we're like, man, maybe it's time to re-listen to the first Black Sabbath record. And you know what? We might have had a smoke, might have had a drink, but all of a sudden we're like, man, this is wildly good.
It
Which
was good.
you know, and it rediscovered like the first Black Sabbath record, which really excited us and got us playing again. And it was like, and then we explored like just playing heavy riffs like that, slow it down, not try to be so technical, and all of that. And I think that there was a big resurgence in that. Obviously, there's so many cookie cutter like doom bands out there right now that no offense, but they bore me to death.
they
But
all boring. Most of them.
yeah, yeah. Thank you, Michael. I've been there, done that. You know, and there's some good people that execute that. But why not just be in a Sabbath cover band? You know, if you can't, if you can pay homage, as I think my brother and I did, and play some music. But you know, a heavy riff is like, oh, it's a nod to Sabbath, a nod to Ozzy. But not basing your whole thing on that is kind of a
You,
bummer, if
you
you
know
ask me.
what you know what happened after that? You had so many bands come out. Like you had Cinderella, you had Rat,
Mm.
you had Molly Crew, you had everybody that was trying to copy like that Black Sabbath heavy metal, but
Well,
nobody
you
did it
did, you
like that.
did.
You know,
What?
nobody did it like that.
Well, since you bring this up, and I want to touch on something Michael said, I saw Metallica open for Ozzy in '86. Now,
Yeah,
this was in Hampton, Virginia. So that's about halfway between my hometown of Richmond and Virginia Beach.
yeah.
Okay. There was a Hampton Coliseum. It was Metallica, a Metallica opened for them.
Right.
And it was the Ultimate Sin
The Ultimate
tour
Centaur. Yeah.
with Jakey Lee on his second thing. So again, as a guitar
That
player, I
was
was
the big hit off that was what? Shot in the Dark?
shot in the dark. I just
Yep.
shot one step away from that whole thing. Very, very overproduced. And
Yeah.
Ozzy was wearing like a sparkle jacket and all that.
He
And
had his
Jakey,
he had his hair frosted
it was no, but it was well, it was ironic because, like you said, Rob, Rat was killing it. Motley Crue was doing Theater Pain. Everybody was glammed out.
Yeah,
But
crammed to the
but and Ozzy and Jakey Lee, they were glammed out. But it was Metallica opening for them
and they were not glammed out.
when it was time to go back to denim and leather
Back to the roots, yep.
and
Hey, did,
thrash. Yeah, but it
any
was
of you
a
guys see
a hell of a show. I'll tell you
yeah.
that. Yeah,
Did
I
any of
was
you
16.
guys did any of you guys see the funeral online? Did you get to see it?
There's
They did it
just some
online.
highlights of it,
I saw pictures. I saw pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw pictures. And you know, Katie and I, for a moment, my wife and I, we were watching that last show in Birmingham, right? And they shared some pictures and videos from that. But now I think it's going to pay-per-view, which is okay. But there was some crazy, great footage from that, and yeah, he'll just be so well missed.
Yeah. I think
Um,
Guns N' Roses and Metallica played the show, right?
I think they both opened for them, Rob. Yeah,
Yeah.
I believe you're correct. But I saw, but it was something to see and to be 16 years old, drive down an hour away and go near the beach and see Metallica open for Ozzy, and but since when I was living in Seattle, I went to some Ozfest Well, I'll preface that in a moment. But I saw Ozzy with Bill Ward on drums and Geezer Butler in the original band at the Gorge in Seattle, which
Oh,
when my wife and I lived out there, just incredible. But one thing Ozzy was always a joke Tony Iommi about. He was like, people don't realize, but I'll turn to him and make funny faces. And I, heard this in an interview, but sure enough, he would do that. And Ozzy was reading off an iPad, but he did War Pigs like a champ,
yeah.
and it was great. And then I saw him with a different drummer. Um, uh, the second time I saw him out there, but I went to an Oz Fest where Judas Priest was opening, which was incredible. But that was in Northern Virginia. So it was just a skip and a jump for me at the time. But I went with a great friend, my friend Russell. Um, he was like, "You got to come with me to this." And Bill Ward was playing on drums there, and they just destroyed the place. And I just never thought I'd really catch Black Sabbath in their true form as I did. But lo and behold, I always thought I'd see Ozzy, which I did. But
Yeah,
point is, I never thought I'd see Black Sabbath
Yeah.
reunited at my age, even at the time. But lo and behold, I was able to see him 3 times with Bill Ward and other drummers, and
yeah.
just fantastic, So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
One thing I got to bring up, and it's not music related, but it's definitely part of the Ozzy legend, is the show, the Osbournes.
Oh
Okay.
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
sure.
And it's funny. I at the time of the show, I watched it. Okay. And it was funny,
it
but
was funny.
there was so many times because he was a character and a half, but there was so many times I have to say, I felt that they were just exploiting him. You know what I mean?
Well,
And
yeah.
but now I watch it and I've seen it in recent years and I'm like, nah, it's okay. He doesn't even care. He's just
Yeah,
having
well,
a
you
good time.
gotta wonder.
I
Well,
just think he took the camera and just rolled with it. Because you know what? You know what the best part of the show was when you saw an MTV and he was like, "Well, Sharon, I'm a beep 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 beep."
Sharon.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, Sharon.
he'd be
Well, no,
screaming.
it's always like they lose a cat, and it's like, where's
Yeah,
the cat?
or the dog.
Sharon.
I
What?
saw that clip recently when he's
Yeah.
trying to get the cat, and that's pretty funny.
That's why I brought it up. I saw that too, and it's like, no, the cat. But it's genius, and you got to give it to Sharon. But it served as a template for many reality
Oh yeah,
shows.
he was the first reality show. That was the
Yeah,
first
The
reality
first,
show
like,
that
with
show.
the musician, like,
we all enjoy them. I mean, there's an addiction there, but it was great pop culture. And if you ask me, well, I mean, I got to bring him up, but Gene Simmons was never an Ozzy.
no,
But Ozzy always had a. Well, that brings us back to the Beatles.
yeah,
but uh, but it was always no Ozzy, somebody, and Sharon's a very bright woman.
Yeah,
But it was like, we'll just be funny, and their kids were darling, and I can't
yeah,
imagine. Once again, raise your glass to the Osbourne clan. Yeah, I
yeah.
it
certainly
was,
will.
Right.
it
I
was
mean,
such a it
it's
was such a great show.
Mm.
it was, and like I said, I always thought they were kind of exploiting him, but then when I watch it again, I'm like, no, he's just having a great time with this whole thing. He doesn't care.
Yeah, well, I did share with my wife the other day because it all comes out of the woodwork when somebody goes away, when
Yeah,
somebody passes. But there was some. It wasn't a reality show, but Sharon had some woman on at some like little talk show or something, and this woman posited, and I think a little slip of the tongue. She was like, "Well, your husband's kind of a vegetable," and Sharon got up and hit her.
oh shit, I
No,
didn't
it
know
was
that.
it was no, it was some terrible no, it's some terrible thing that Sharon produced and was
Yeah,
like, no, we'll get these girls and it'll be funny. And this girl had a slip of the tongue and was like, well, your husband's kind of a vegetable. And Sharon got up and said, no, I'm not having it. And that's good woman to have behind you.
she stuck by him. He stuck by him all those years, and
Well,
all the
yeah,
all the antics and problems that he
that
had.
that's what
You
I'm
know,
saying.
I
Yeah,
love that. I don't remember what it was from, but there was a TV show or something where he got interviewed, and it was back in the '80s, and like maybe late 80s. And he's it's like breakfast time, and he's pouring orange juice, and he's talking.
Oh, I saw that
And
recently.
he spills the orange juice as he's talking.
Oh yeah.
And he's talking about like the guy. I forget if it's a man or a woman interviewing him, but they're asking him like, are you sober now? And he's like,
Yeah, no, I'm completely quit drugs. And he's like, well, can you? Well, I wouldn't hire you as a waiter.
Classic.
Yeah, if you can pour the OJ in the coffee, you're hired. Outside of that,
and the camera just focused in on the OJ going all over the place.
Oh man, no, it's
Mike,
so funny.
You know what's incredible about the whole thing? He did that show on January 5th. I mean, July 5th.
July
and
5th,
then July 17th. He's like, how fucking crazy is that? It's like,
it was his
say like he saw something. You think he saw
No,
something?
I got to be honest, guys. I mean, and then between the three of us and the millions of people that will listen to this, no, I was in tears. I really was. I started listening. My poor wife, and I was like, I need to be alone. And I've been listening to Ozzy ever since. I go to work in the morning, I bust it out, but I've only been listening to him and the guitar players, as you know. Later in his career too. Again, and I don't mean to bring it back to the Beatles, but a lot of these older guys really loved all that. Gene Simmons, and I don't want to paint it with that. But the Ozzy was so funny. When you look at old interviews, he's like, I don't listen to heavy metal really. I know Iron Maiden. I know all these people. But I listen and even in the 80s, he was like, I listened to Duran Duran. I listened to Peter Gabriel. I listened to like weird stuff. And I listened to the Beatles. But I'm just saying, my point is his later work was very melodic, especially with Zakk Wylde, Mama, I'm Coming Home. Yeah. He was trying to write like a John Lennon song, and he achieved it, if you ask me, because those were his heroes.
Didn't Lemmy write that song? Lemmy from Motorhead?
Maybe.
I thought he did.
Well, you might be right. So
I'm pretty sure.
I don't mind. Look, I don't mind standing corrected. But again, Ozzy, that mid-range voice, and Zakk Wylde, another great guitar player. But he really, Ozzy could write those melodies, and it didn't hurt to have great guitar players to come in and say, "I've got this." But Ozzy always found a melody, and especially with Black Sabbath, he could say, "I have an idea." Maybe he couldn't always. It didn't always come to fruition, but maybe somebody helped him with the lyrics from time to time. But an amazing writer, and for me, really a true heavy metal genius and a songwriting genius. And I'm not inflating that.
And in his prime, he was a great front man. Okay, he can get an audience pumped up. During Black Sabbath, those shows, I've seen clips of stuff in the 70s. That was great concerts.
Mike, you know who was like that too? Lemmy from Motorhead. That guy's he's a great
Lemmy.
And he had that freaking loud bass that he played loud as fuck. Because they were a musician going to see what the hell Lemmy did. And they go, wow, this is how loud he was playing this bass. Like he could play as loud as he could. And
that's kind of the fun part. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I brought up Gene Simmons, but Lemmy too. They didn't start out as heavy metal guys. No. They started out as I listened to Dwayne Eddy. I like rockabilly. I like Johnny Cash. I like Chuck. Like Rob, like I said, they like chunka chunka digga.
No, it definitely.
They like but it turned into heavy metal.
Another thing is Lemmy was a huge Beatles fan. Okay. And he would put it. He'd even go so far to say that, the Stones were really the pretty boys and not the Beatles. He says the Beatles were from Liverpool. That was tough. That was blue collar.
Well,
the Stones were going to art school in London. Which is true. Yeah. Richards and Jagger went to art school. Okay?
No, they were art school guys.
Yeah. But the Beatles were like the real tough guys of that scene, and that's often overlooked.
They were Liverpool.
The other thing I want to mention, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, Sean, is like the influences on say Tony Iommi. I mean, I hear blues in his music.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's slowed down. Okay, especially the first couple albums.
And it's tuned down.
That's what I mean. Tuned down, and
Way low.
also played some songs are played slow. Okay, but they had like it was you could hear it in the music, but it was done in a way that none of the other British bands that were blues driven were doing.
Nobody.
The Stones were probably the best at it.
Oh,
but,
the Stones were definitely blues, but
yeah, it was more obvious. It was more obvious what the Stones were doing. Sabbath did it kind of on the down low,
Well, there's a great. Well, I won't bore anybody with this, but for me just the godfathers of heavy metal, because there was blues, there was Led Zeppelin, there was Hendrix, there were heavy bands, there was Blue Cheer.
Yeah.
For Tony Iommi to write that way and really, it was sludge, and it was Birmingham, and that's a big part of Ozzy's identity,
that was
more than ever. But it just really, it came from there. For me, that's heavy metal, and I don't know. I like to be the mouth from the South with my opinions. But if you come in and be like, well, Sean, they weren't the first heavy metal band, keep walking.
No, I think so. I think that they really, what
for me,
metal would be. What metal? No, I agree, because I think some people point to Zeppelin. I really don't think so, because Zeppelin was still in that bluesy kind of realm. Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't really, and they were also a little bit Sabbath with that's a anyway. Skip to the chase. Sabbath did stuff like Planet Caravan, right?
Yeah,
which was a little progressive.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Which was great, because they sat around and smoked dope and were like, let's just try something. And it's like,
well, they were listening to what was going on.
Beautiful.
Around them. Yeah.
But for the most part, they were. Yeah, for me, they were the real heavy band. And Rob, you brought it up when you said, Iron Man, I think, was probably the heaviest song I ever heard. And I was when I was learning how to play guitar, and we had Van Halen. I had all that. I had my first guitar, but Iron Man was like one of the first songs I tried to learn, and it was like, okay, this is heavy, and we all played it wrong, but Iron Man might, one of the heaviest songs,
Yeah.
Your first.
So let's shift gears for a minute here, okay? Before we get into the Hulk Hogan stuff, I want to talk about Esoteric Academy, okay? Esoteric Academy is one of our sponsors. You might know Bryce from Esoteric Atlanta. I've done a lot of work on her podcast related to Son of Sam, true crime, the occult, and things like that. That's Esoteric Atlanta. But she has an online school called Esoteric Academy.
Okay.
And we're going to put everything in the show notes about this particular online school. She teaches yoga. She teaches Eastern philosophies. And a lot of people are into that these days, and she's very good at it. She has a couple of people with her. They're all very, very good at this. She's doing it all from a level of healing people spiritually in an Eastern philosophy kind of way. So check out Esoteric Academy. And also, if you do mention Rocker Mike, if you say Rocker Mike 69, okay, you will get a discount on the tuition for Esoteric Academy, which is not that expensive. It's very, very cheap. So check out Esoteric Academy. And Rob, you'll put everything in the show notes, right?
Yes, I will.
Okay. All right. So after paying the bills right there, now we're
going very cool. Very cool. Yeah.
Talk about Hulk Hogan a little bit. And I've never been a big wrestling guy, so I'm going to defer a lot of this to Rob. Yeah. But Hulk Hogan was more than just a wrestler. I mean, he was really just an iconic figure, controversial at times. Okay. but I think he was loved by most people. Would you agree, Rob?
Yeah, he was loved by a lot of people. I'm just looking at some because I actually got a bunch of notes because we're gonna go through some career highlights and stuff
Yeah, let's do
I
it.
want to talk to about him. So
How about you,
I
how
got
about
some
you, Sean? Are you a Hulk Hogan guy? A little bit, right?
Well, Rob has brought my wrestling interest back to the surface because my brother's interested. I'll stick around for the conversation. I'm not
also
a big Hulk Hogan guy, but I'd love to listen.
All right, cool.
so you know
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan was born August 11 in Georgia.
What was his real name,
Georgia.
Rob?
His real name was Terry Jean Bolay.
Terry. That's right. Yes.
Terry. And a lot of people don't realize when Hulk Hogan first came out, he had a gimmick and he started in the Florida territory, but he was a match wrestler called Super Destroyer. And then he adopted the name Sterling Gold. And that's where, then he went to AWA and started the name Hulk Hogan. Vince McMahon showed it because when Hulk Hogan first came up, he was a villain. Like he was fighting under the giant in the beginning, beating up, and then Andre was really like kicking his ass to learn him how to
Right, he was a bad guy when he started.
how to wrestle. And another funny thing, when Hulk Hogan was back, he was like a bouncer. He was playing guitar, his bass and stuff, and all that other stuff. And the wrestler would go to wherever he was at and say, "Hey, you should start training." He went to train with this wrestling guy, and the guy broke his leg. And he said, "If you really want to wrestle, come back." And Hogan got jacked up, came back, and became what he became. He went to the AWA, and Vern Gagne saw him, and he told, "This is the greatest thing ever." And he got
Rob, go ahead. I'm sorry.
he got to the point that he wanted to make him his champion, but he talked to Vince McMahon, and Vince McMahon said, "I want you to be the face of the company. I got a lot of stuff coming up." And Hulk Hogan went and joined Vince McMahon, and because they went from they had the Iron Sheik beat up Bob Backlund for the world title, so they're going to go from Holly Dooley to Hulk Hogan. You had this weird redheaded wrestler that could wrestle as fuck, but he had nothing. He had no charisma. And then the next thing you see that they got January 24, 1984, Madison Square Garden. Hulk Hogan just got there and he fights the Iron Sheik. The Iron Sheik put him in the camel clutch. Everybody thought it was over. Hulk Hogan.
The camel clutch.
The camel clutch. Hulk Hogan did the Hogan comeback, this and that, and pinned the Iron Sheik, and it was iconic. The first guy that came to the back of the, because they used to win the title, they would go in the back, pop the champagne, and the two party under the Giants throwing champagne over Hulk Hogan, and they're hanging out. And behind the mind, Vince McMahon sees that, and now they work a deal to have a match to settle it all on MTV. So they had Hulk Hogan versus Roddy Piper.
I remember that.
And it was insane. It was the first. Were you gonna say, Sean?
No, I'm sorry. I'm not. Yeah, me.
So they had this whole thing with Hulk Hogan and Roddy Piper. They had this match, this thing, and all hell broke loose. You had Cyndi Lauper jumping the head. You had
chairs were flying around, right?
You got Captain Lou Albano.
Captain Lou Albano's getting.
I saw Rob the other day. My brother fell in love with wrestling. So Rob, real quickly, and I talk to Rob daily sometimes. Yeah. But I was like, well, my brother loves wrestling, but I learned about it because my brother found it fascinating. Mostly the Rock and Sock connection, but then there's a lot of history in wrestling. But Vince McMahon, like Rob said, and I have come to in the fascination of time, I've found that kind of fascinating.
But Vince McMahon saw MTV as a platform to promote wrestling. And they had a few, even Hulk Hogan was a guest VJ and introducing videos and stuff once in a while.
Oh, yeah.
And they had
a cultural icon. Yeah.
Yeah. So they had that whole connection for a while. But then Vince McMahon was already had he borrowed money, $1 million from his wife's family to do the first WrestleMania. And that whole MTV got started because you had Mr. T jump into the ring and get
Well, we're talking Rocky 3 now, too.
Yeah, and he had he was Thunder Lips and Rocky 3 and all this stuff. And
No,
if
sure.
you ever saw that Rocky thing with because Sylvester Stallone is a tiny man, and you put him up this monster that was like 6'8".
He's like up to here on him, right? He's like right here.
Man, those scenes are diabolical where it's just like, okay, I thought Clubber Lang was going to kill him. And then now you got Hulk Hogan who's like, hey, it's just an exhibition match.
Yeah.
And it's classic Stallone where he's like, hey, you know, take it easy on me. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to kill you. No, you know, I
gotta watch that again. That's fucking funny. I remember
he came in there and did that, and after that, it was so. Then they did that whole Rocky 3. They did their thing, and then Vince McMahon go, "We're gonna do a thing called WrestleMania, where we're gonna incorporate entertainment. Like they brought in everybody. It was a who's of people. You had you had Billy Martin there. You had Vanna White. You had all kind of stars in there.
Rob, we had Dude Love, and so I'm a Mankind Rock and Sock Connection kind of guy. But
I'm
Vince
talking about this is the first WrestleMania. How crazy it was!
I'm talking McMahon. Okay.
You had Muhammad Ali as a referee. Like you had all these people in there. You had even Archie and the girl, the Roxette.
Yeah,
it was a spectacle. It was like
China.
Yeah,
China.
You had all these guys, and the main event was Hulk Hogan, Mr. T versus Roddy Piper, Paul Orndorff. But Piper did not like it. Piper was like, Mr. T's not a wrestler. He's taken one of the slot as a wrestler. So anytime Mr. T and Piper got the Piper really gave him some potatoes.
Rob, talk a little bit about Hulkamania.
So Hulkamania started on I'm telling you, January 24th, where he beat the Iron Sheik. And at one point, Hulk Hogan used to come out to the Eye of the Tiger.
Yes,
that was his original. The
Yeah,
that's he came up with that.
Can I say something real quick? Yeah. That's part of that Stallone connection.
Yeah,
maybe.
But then anyway, what's back in the days, wrestling like all these people would have entrance music, but they weren't paying royalties. Later on, they got to the point. So Hulk Hogan had that thing, and then after that, he changed to "I Am a Real American," and he became like a symbol. But Hulkamania started where he'd say, "Eat your vitamins, say your prayer." He made kids want to be a better version of themselves. It was all about raising people up.
Tell me about it.
Take your vitamin.
Rob, you would know this better than me. I kind of remember in the '80s something like a Saturday morning thing or something.
They had a wrestling show, Rock and Wrestling show.
Was it Saturday mornings? He talked to kids.
Saturday morning. Yeah, it was like Hogan, the Iron Sheik, all these wrestlers hanging out.
Yeah, I remember.
Rob, if you don't mind me speaking of that, but back in the South, I think it was like Sunday or Saturday, but when cartoons were over, the wrestling would come on.
Oh yeah,
Saturday.
And my brother and I, we were like, oh, wrestling, that's for the birds, and we'd go out and do our own thing. But it was always on, and it was always on. And they had like
WWE superstars like at 12 o'clock, 11 o'clock, right after
Roddy Piper, Nature Boy. Who was a Nature Boy's sidekick though? By the way, because I remember this from whatever. He had another. Ric Flair had that other blonde guy.
Ric Flair had a bunch of people. He had Odie Anderson, Teddy Blanchard. He had a bunch of. It
might have been Teddy Blanchard. It sounds like a Virginia name, but
he also had Magnum TA, the guy that was supposed to be the next. If he never got to
Rob, we had Junkyard. Rob, we had Junkyard Dog. They come to the Richmond Coliseum, and my brother and I were like, "No, we like heavy metal. We don't understand this." But then we kind of got into it.
Yeah. No, it was good.
But Hulk became a cultural icon.
Yeah, he did. Hulk Hogan was everywhere. Hulk Hogan, you know what?
Hulkamania.
People will be like, you will ask people wrestling, they will be like, that's what Hulk Hogan does.
He was everywhere.
When Hulkamania really arrived, it was at WrestleMania 3 with him and Andre the Giant. Yeah. And Hogan always told this story that Andre the Giant and the boys used to play poker in the back, and Hulk Hogan didn't think Andre the Giant was going to let him beat him, because Andre the Giant told him, "I'm going to take your title. I'm going to embarrass you in front of everybody."
Okay.
And if you see that match, the first second of that match, in the first minute, it looked like he got pinned for 3, but Andre went up a little bit. And then Hogan, never forget, we wrestled him. We're in there for 15 minutes.
He was a
And
giant.
Hogan, and Hogan said, "Andre, wristful in my ear. Slam." And, fucking slamming. And he passed the torch. And
Oh,
that's it.
man.
Hulkamania
Well,
forever.
yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. You gotta love it.
Yeah, it's
My
great.
other great memory of Hogan was when he started the NWO and WCW with Hulk Hogan.
Well, that's where my brother got into it. It was
When
we had
Hulk Hogan
Xbox.
turned
Hardy-
back, amen.
Well,
Everybody's
that's
like,
all. Well, that's
everybody Hulk
McMahon.
Hogan. Yeah. No, this was in WCW. This was Eric Bishop. He left WWF, remember, after the scandal of the steroid?
man.
Yeah,
You know what?
yeah, he got caught up in that, right?
Yeah, he's actually the
well,
one that he told people he didn't know
good
what was
thing,
happening,
yeah.
and he actually saved Vince McMahon from going to jail. But then they parted ways, you know. So you had WrestleMania 6 with Hulk Hogan, the Ultimate Warrior. That was another mega match. But the big match was when he came back from when he went to WCW and then came back to WWE. He wrestled The Rock, and they were in Toronto. And it was almost like Hulk Hogan came back. He was this horrible heel. But by midway, the fans were screaming, Hogan, Hogan. The Rock's like, what the hell's going on? And
Oh man.
they had that moment where, they changed and The Rock
Oh man.
pinned Hogan. The torch was passed from Hogan to The Rock. And then the next day, the biggest baby face in the world, Hulk Hogan came out and the crowd erupted. It was insane how that change went from a guy that people hated and he came back and he had like a brand new career,
But it was no. But if I may, because I do, I have a note on this, and let me say hi to my brother Seth. He's going to love this podcast. But McMahon really did turn that from, no, he just turned it into a crazy enterprise, and Hulk Hogan had everything to do with that because you need a star. He was, they call it David Lee Roth, call him what you want. But it was massive, and I mean, I don't have to love the guy, but a cultural icon. I mean, he was inescapable.
You couldn't get away with it. He was one of the first.
Well, and he was
Saturday Night Live.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I say he was one of the first wrestlers, him and Mr. T, to host Saturday Night Live.
Oh well, I guess you're probably right. I'd have to look that up. But
they hosted it together. They hosted it together.
But yeah, Rossi, the only other guy to ever host, the other guy that was a wrestler that hosted was Andy Kaufman.
Yeah.
Oh well, he wasn't a wrestler.
He wasn't a
wrestler.
He wrestled women. I do that every day.
No, but he wrestled Jerry Lawler. And
thank you, Michael Baker. Thank you.
That's why he was wearing the neck press.
That's lunch for me.
Yeah, but Andy Kaufman was wearing the neck brace and
just absurd. I remember.
The money in the world. You're embarrassing me. And that was a weird kind of wrestling stuff that happened.
No, Rossi, that's so good. But no, but McMahon is kind of a genius on that. So I don't know nearly as much about wrestling as you do, but my brother does, and it's an incredible subject. And but yeah, you couldn't have asked for a more. I don't know. He was it, and he propelled. If anything, he propelled his career. But so McMahon reciprocated.
Yeah,
well,
but
Bob, maybe you would know this. What was the? How did he get connected with Trump?
Who's that? Oh, well, let's not go there.
Wait up. You know why? Remember, they did the WrestleMania 4 and 5 was in Trump Casino. They did that back-to-back WrestleMania.
Right,
and that's all it was. And Trump came out there. Trump was also, remember when they had the thing between Vince McMahon and Trump?
Right.
Trump his own wrestler, and Vince McMahon got his own wrestler.
Look at me. No, just stay on track.
Yeah, whoever won got their head shaved. So Vince McMahon lost, and Trump saved Vince. So
Shaved his head.
they always been connected. Why you think Linda McMahon is in the? You know, she's like she's in the Trump administration. But Trump always had a good. Trump used to come in and the fans would go crazy. The Trump come in the Madison Square Garden. They love him. So that's where they go. All these wrestlers, a lot of these wrestlers are Trumpster, but but nobody really talks about it because.
Okay, well, I just like to redirect. So Zach Wilde, who wrote "Mama's I'm Coming Home," for Ozzy Osbourne, and Ozzy, and you can edit this later. But Ozzy again didn't write a lot. He didn't write any of his guitar parts. Bark at the Moon. He didn't write that.
I know.
Jakey Lee was in Rat, and you can edit this later. Jakey Lee was in Rat and all that good stuff, and it was hard. It was hard to get the rights to all that for a lot of players like that. But great song. But once again, Ozzy wrote those lyrics, and I think it's tough for singers, especially when you leave a band like Sabbath, who's a group effort, to say, okay, well, I did this part, but you wrote the guitar part. Where do we get from here? So I think the rights and, lawyers get involved in all that. But Bark at the Moon, incredible album. Better than The Ultimate Sin.
You know what the thing is? I think Ozzy got to the point that he just wanted to get away from Sabbath. It's like any relationship. After a while, we did that, we did this. Where else can we go from here? So you move on.
Rob, I'm impelled to agree with it
all the time. You know that?
Rob Rossi
wanted to get out of the velvet. Like shit happens, man.
Rob, I'm completely impelled to agree with you because I think he was touring with Motley Crue. Can you imagine if I had that money and Ozzy wasn't a young chicken, but Motley Crue was. If I were 24 touring around and be like, honey, I'll call you later. Can you look at you know me in the neighborhood now. You can imagine. But really great material that some other people that were helping write that for him, like Bark at the Moon. That was Jakey Lee after Brad Gillis and after and after Randy Rhoads, sadly. But he had like almost nearly #1 heavy metal record, and people were like, who is this Jakey Lee? Well, Bark at the Moon was a savage. It was an incredible song, and it was like, well, Ozzy's back in the biggest way, but it was a lot of business and a lot of tough stuff, just like pro wrestling, Rob.
Honestly, wrestling too. You have your trouble. Everybody has trouble. Like at one point,
even if you're hot, you're hearing me. I'm sorry, I'll shut up. But they're hot. Like Hogan was hot.
Yeah. But the thing with Hogan
Jakey Lee was hot.
Yeah. The thing with Hogan was that he had that horrible breakup with Vince McMahon, and then they came back and reunited and talked. He got to the point that he left and he went to Southern Wrestling. He went to WCW. You would never think Hulk Hogan would leave the WWE because Hogan made all his money. And when he went to WCW, he made some money, but he didn't make money until he turned into a bad guy, which was amazing. Hogan as a bad guy. Hogan the heel just slamming
redneck. No, I'm such a redneck. We can edit this out, but I'm such a redneck. But But my brother's all into WCW. Rob, you gotta.
Yeah, that was your
Michael. You're like, we'll edit this out. But Seth, my brother Seth, is like the quiet version of me. You'll love him, but he loves his wrestling. Rob,
maybe we gotta have him on next time because you guys shut the fuck up, Sean. All right.
Hey, Seth Harris.
No, you know what the thing is. You remember when you had Ted Turner.
Michael, I'll make fun of you in a minute. Yeah.
Remember, Ted Turner started the wrestling. He started with on TBS. If everybody remember the Superstation.
Yeah.
They had the Braves. They had the Hawks. Anything that was in Atlanta. TBS was the first one to have 2 hours. They had it for like over 40 years. They had every Saturday 6:05. And
I remember that.
That was the iconic wrestling show.
TBS and I think TNT also had it.
No, TNT had it way later, but TBS had it forever. TNT started with the Monday Night Nitro that they started that whole Monday Night War, And
Yeah,
that's when they got Hogan to come over because they were going up against. So Monday Night Raw is something that's been around like WWE on Mondays forever.
Well, let me give you something you can use. So Rob Rossi and I talk about, and again, my brother enjoyed wrestling, and he kind of discovered wrestling on TNT. Okay, and I had never, but again, the Rock and Sock connection and all of that. But with the history of Vince McMahon, I found kind of fascinating, Rob.
Oh, yeah.
You know, just like rock and roll, I found Vince McMahon pretty fascinating.
Well,
And but he had his tethers, he had his talons into Hulk Hogan very early on. And he knew what he was doing, and it was WWF way back in the day. And like you said, you know the history of wrestling better than I do. But it's kind of the Hulk Hogan's fascinating career, you know, because it set a template for a lot of other wrestlers.
Yeah, but you know what they did, and this is why Hulkamania will always be around. It's like when Vince McMahon started back in the day, there was wrestling territory. Vince McMahon pretty much killed all the territory. Vince McMahon was the only one giving these guys a guaranteed contract. You're gonna work for me, and this is how much you're gonna make a year. And nobody had that in wrestling. That was something that was unbelievable. It got to the point that like
Well, can I chime in for a second? I studied The Rock. They played Connect.
What almost happened was there was a weird kind of wrestling mafia. You know, at one point they would think of assassinating Vince McMahon.
I remember that.
It was insane. That's how fucking crazy it got.
Oh, did it get that bad? Did it get that bad? Did it get that bad?
He was stealing all the talent. Everybody, why would you go to a territory? You might make 7,000 or something, but when you get a guarantee, you get a contract that this is your contract. I'm gonna give you a 3-year contract for, let's say, $1 million or 200,000, whatever. That's more money that they were making just going, and you were guaranteed. Even if it wasn't a set out, you still would guarantee your money.
I prefer more money if possible.
Yeah. And then there's the pay-per-view money that they had.
Yeah. All right, guys, I want to pull the plug here. Okay, about an hour. Great show on Ozzy and Hulk Hogan. Thank you, Sean, for being on.
Hey, thank you, guys.
Okay. And let me just do a little coming attraction here for a second.
Yeah. What we got coming up?
Well, if anybody hasn't seen it yet, the July Rock Show was with our friend Madeline Baccaro. We talked about 6 live albums you got to hear. August Rock Show will be about Van Morrison. We've got that in the can already, ready to go. September through the rest of the year is interesting. September, we got the Waterboys. They are a old, kind of like folkish band from Scotland that is still around, making great music. October, we're doing a show on Nick Cave. I found that kind of appropriate for.
I love it.
November is going to be good. I'm going to go underground here and talk about the legends of psychobilly music. All right. People like Hazel Atkins and the legendary Stardust Cowboy and
that's a good one.
And stuff like that we're going to talk about. And, of course, December is always our year-end show where we give out some awards, best song, best film of the year, and we'll review some cult movies and other movies that came out with hopefully with Clown again. Scott the Clown, I'm sure, will be back on.
Yeah.
So that's it, man. You know, the year will be over with soon. I mean, it's like it's fast.
What bands you got a book you're thinking of right now that'll be maybe the candidates for the end of the year show?
I can't say. There's been quite a few things going on. You want to get some live music again, like we've done?
If we could, let's see where we can do it. Because worst case today, we could do it at Area Bar again. Because we could grab that space anytime. Or we could
yeah. All right. I'm gonna give.
You never know.
I'm gonna give. We'll figure it out.
Hey, well, with good editing, thank you, fellas. Always a pleasure, and I really enjoyed it.
All right, take care, Sean. And what do we always say at the end of every episode?
We don't get drunk.
We get lumped up.
And
we get lumped up.
Yeah,
that's about it. All right,
take care,
cheers, fellas.